Cries of Russia, Russia resound across Simferopol's Lenin Square. Crimea's pro-Russian population is celebrating the result of the referendum. Is this all staged? Are the flags just props? The masses of people a crowd of extras? For 14 days, I've been watching a sometimes frightening drama unfold. I've just landed and am heading to the center of Simferopol, the regional capital. Vlad, who will be helping me during my visit, drives a 1988 Zhiguli, once the pride of the Soviet auto industry. This car is not all that has survived the Soviet Union. Its spirit is still alive in Simferopol. Especially on Lenin Square. A few demonstrators are silently standing around holding signs. This slogan reads, "Russia is strong." Others say NATO hands off Crimea. Thanks to our protectors, and thank you, Putin. Thanks for what? I ask this woman.
For protecting us from the criminals who've taken power in Kiev. Russia must defend us, because our own country can't do it. Our Crimea is defenseless.
I see red armbands being handed out in a far corner of the square. They read Druzhinikim, or volunteer militias of the Autonomous Republic of Crimea. Supported by groups of Cossacks, the pro-Russian Home Guard is forming here. So far, they don't make a very hard-hitting impression. I approach the man who seems to be the leader of the group.
I'm the head of the 11th Militia Company. The people gathering here have appeared for duty to maintain order in the city. They are workers, teachers, ordinary citizens of this city, who are helping the Crimean authorities to guarantee calm and order.
After that statement, he marches his men away. What an absurd troop, I think. The morning news conference. The new head of government in Crimea has invited the media. Sergei Aksyonov became de facto prime minister under dubious circumstances a few days ago. Armed pro-Russian militias surrounded the regional parliament. Behind closed doors and in presence of Kalashnikov-wielding gunmen, the backbencher from a tiny party suddenly became Crimea's leader. Other journalists tell me the man is known for his machine gun-like delivery and is said to have connections to local organized crime. Aksyonov is a man in a hurry. Twice already he's brought forward the date of the planned secession referendum. Today I'm heading south from Simferopol. Vlad has told me about a besieged Ukrainian military base 40 kilometers away. We arrive in time to see the changing of the guard in front of the barracks. Who sent these soldiers? They're not wearing any insignia, but they seem professionally organized and heavily armed. I ask them if they speak Russian. They continue to march off without answering. A new group of soldiers marches up in their place. For days, pro-Russian forces have been blockading this Ukrainian military base and other strategic facilities in Crimea. It's a threatening standoff. And I hope nobody is going to make a false move. The Ukrainian soldiers are imprisoned behind the gates of their own base, guarded by Druzhniki, the pro-Russian militias. The volunteers at the main gate are getting ready for the upcoming frosty nights. There's a church on the base. The Archbishop of the Ukrainian Orthodox congregation of Simferopol wants entry. The militias refuse to let the cleric in. The discussion gets louder and more aggressive. Archbishop Clement backs off.
They're calling us traitors against the fatherland. They say we have no right to be on Crimean soil, even though I myself am a citizen of Crimea. My ancestors lived here and are buried here. But these people don't listen. They've been stirred up and politicized. They're blinded. That makes it very, very difficult to talk with them.
Next morning at the market in Simferopol. Everything seems normal, as if there were nothing wrong. Ethnic Russians are a majority in Crimea, making up about 60% of the republic's 2 million people. But for centuries, the peninsula has been a mixture of many population groups. After yesterday's events, I'm surprised how calm everything seems.
Everything is normal. There are no problems. Maybe some people want them, but here in Crimea we absolutely don't need unrest. People are a little worried about the situation, but they are all going to work as usual. Just look around you. Here are Russians, Crimean Tatars, Western and Eastern Ukrainians all living together in friendship and peace.
A moment later, the picture of friendly coexistence starts to crack. Some people object to my camera, and there's a heated exchange. The Crimean Tatars seem to feel most threatened by the recent developments. Why is the situation more dangerous for the Crimean Tatars than for others?
That's because my grandparents experienced terrible things. They were persecuted and deported from Crimea. So, of course, I don't want that to happen again.
Friday prayers in Simferopol. The Kebir Jami Mosque is the religious heart of the Crimean Tatar community. I can see that this is not a normal Friday for Crimea's Muslim minority. Around 300,000 Crimean Tatars now live on the peninsula. Most of them returned to Crimea after the end of the Soviet Union. Under Stalin, they were accused of collaborating with the Nazi Wehrmacht and collectively expelled to Siberia and Central Asia. After the prayer, the Tatars' political leader addresses the crowd. He urges them to remain unified and to boycott the upcoming referendum. The Crimean Tatars are clearly in favor of remaining part of Ukraine. Rifat Khubarov is feeling the heat. He bears the responsibility of navigating his small minority safely through this huge political crisis. He calls on the West and the United Nations to intervene on their behalf.
45 years after our expulsion from our home, we have settled here again. We are not some people that appeared from nowhere. We are the original indigenous people of Crimea.
In front of the mosque, I met a young Crimean Tatar. He lives on the outskirts of Simferopol. Suleiman Khelebiev is a law student. He's concerned about what good his Ukrainian law background will be when Crimea belongs to Russia. His older neighbors express anger about the discrimination they've experienced from the Ukrainian government, especially during the time when they resettled here. There are disputes over property rights and building permits for their homes.
Ukraine has not done anything good for us, but at least not anything bad. Russia is promising us everything under the sun, but it's easy to make promises. They're just trying to buy us. And in return, Russia wants us to keep quiet and not say anything against Putin. This will be totalitarianism.
Suleiman invites me to his home. He wants me to speak with his grandmother. When she was 6 years old, she was deported in a cattle car to the Ural Mountains. Tens of thousands of fellow Tatars died during the expulsions in 1944.
In Soviet times, we experienced the world only in black and white. There was no color in life. We kept quiet and suffered. And our only wish was to return to our homeland. I will never forget the pain. Putin is a former KGB agent. People like him were shaped by the Soviet Union, a regime that oppressed us. But not just us, the Crimean Tatars. There are no peoples who had good experiences under Soviet rule.
I'm beginning to understand what's at stake for the Crimean Tatars. They fear for everything they've rebuilt for themselves here. Back in Simferopol, I see more Russian Cossacks on Lenin Square. This evening, the revolutionary leader will be treated to more Russian folklore. Suddenly there's a stage at the feet of the Lenin statue. The first flags appear, small ones initially. The ethnic Russian soul is stirring, fanned by a new wind of change. Crimea belongs to Ukraine, they're calling. And rise up, Simferopol. It's the first time I've seen a rally by pro-Ukrainian Crimeans since the start of the crisis. Until now, they've been virtually paralyzed by events and intimidated by the pro-Russian militias. It's International Women's Day, and many of the demonstrators are female and young.
Russia would be a step back for me. That is why we are resisting. The most important thing for us is to live in a free country and to be able to feel free. I don't see that in Russia.
And there they are, the Druzhniki volunteers. They're supposedly here to preserve law and order, but to me they look more like a bunch of hooligans. The police are getting nervous. Both groups of demonstrators are marching toward the regional parliament. The pro-Russian militias have already staked their claim here. They've been guarding or blockading the building since the start of the crisis.
You can see for yourself how childish those demonstrators over there are. Maybe they don't understand what's going on. Well, that's up to them.
Crimea belongs to Ukraine, the protesters chant in front of a Ukrainian military facility. Flowers, chocolate, and the Ukrainian national anthem as moral support for the security forces. These Ukrainian soldiers have not gone over to the Russians, nor have they quit the service, despite calls from the pro-Kremlin Crimean government to do so.
We want our boys in there to see that we're on their side. They're caught up in a war of propaganda. They're being lied to and manipulated. Now they can see for themselves and be certain that we stand together. Crimea belongs to Ukraine.
The Druzhniki make another appearance. These Russia shouters are getting on my nerves. It's Sunday morning. I attend a service in Simferopol's Ukrainian Orthodox Church. Archbishop Clement, who I met a few days earlier at the military base, is holding a very worldly sermon. He calls Putin a criminal and condemns the Russian media's war of propaganda.
Russia has always lied and deceived everyone. When Stalin divided up Poland with Hitler, when innocent people were shot in the Gulag, Russia always lied. And unfortunately, the world always believed those lies.
Later in the day, Lenin seems satisfied with the developments in his square. The stage is attracting more and more people. The show, and not just the dance, has a more martial tone than before. More Russian flags are in evidence, and now they're a lot bigger.
Crimea will be better off with Russia. Russia means stability, order, affordable energy, jobs, and peace. And that's why Crimea will go with Russia.
Together with Russia, it says on the posters. They tell the voters exactly what box to check in the upcoming referendum. Many people here seem less than excited about the referendum. They all know what the outcome will be. After all, 60% of the population is ethnic Russian. I pay a visit to a Ukrainian school. Here, at least, the otherwise minority Ukrainians are in the majority.
The streets were called.
The curriculum is Western-oriented. English and German are taught as foreign languages. But for how much longer is the question.
Simferopol is capital of Crimea. Simferopol is situated on the river south.
None of the teachers are willing to be interviewed for fear of getting into political hot water. Who knows? There might soon be a new school principal and a new curriculum.
Has anybody finished?
But one of the fathers is willing to give me his opinion.
I don't want to wave flags for any nationality, but I am for a unified Ukraine. I'll stay positive, no matter how the situation changes. I firmly believe that I live on Ukrainian territory.
Just hours later, the regional parliament approves a declaration of Crimean independence. The pro-Russian leadership wants to hurry it through even before the referendum. An outing to the Black Sea coast. This is the picture postcard Crimea, the image that Russians love so much, their holy Crimea. The resort city of Yalta is already firmly in Russian hands. The choir of Russia's Black Sea Fleet is performing patriotic songs. In the crowd, World War II veterans proudly display their medals. A Soviet-era film star has been flown in to denounce the fascists in Kiev, and Lenin presides over the pro-Russian extravaganza. Some overzealous militias try to take down the Ukrainian flag. At first, they don't succeed. Igor Senin, the owner of a small boutique, refers to the Russian chanters as zombies. They're the undead, risen from the ruins of the Soviet Empire. The Ukrainian is worried about his business, which depends on tourism.
Everyone says it's more or less a done deal that Crimea will become part of Russia. I think far fewer people will vote for it. There's a lot of propaganda at the moment. I'm against it at least, so it won't be 100%.
On the eve of the referendum, the militias make a show of strength in Lenin Square. The ragtag Druziniki have almost become a real army. More than 10,000 pro-Russian vigilantes are supposed to be protecting tomorrow's referendum from terrorists. Since there are no fascists in sight, the name of the enemy has shifted somewhat. Crimea is ready for the great showdown. The flags have multiplied, and so has Soviet nostalgia.
There is a continuous historical line. Kiev and Rus, the Tsars of Moscow, the Russian Empire, the Soviet Union, Russia. That is why I am quite at ease standing under the Russian and the Soviet flag. I was born in this land.
Flickering on the government building is the expected result of tomorrow's referendum. Russia is our home. The plebiscite, organized and overseen by just one of the ethnic groups in Crimea, goes according to plan. Official results say 97% of the participants voted for joining Russia. An election result worthy of Soviet times. Today, an icy wind is blowing over the Crimean mountains. I drive out of Simferopol again to talk with Crimean Tatars. In the village of Kamyashkora, people are shocked and angry about the referendum. A spontaneous crisis meeting in the village center. This man says the result has been faked. The villagers never even received a polling notification.
Some people may be considering leaving Crimea because they don't want to live in a dictatorship. But for us Crimean Tatars, there is no alternative. The Ukrainians can go to Ukraine. But where can we go? This is our land. We won't give it up again. It's our land.
It's now time for me to leave Crimea. My flight home has to go via Moscow. All direct air links to the west have been cancelled. On my arrival back in Berlin, I will hear the news that Vladimir Putin has effectively annexed Crimea.